Bitcoin's had a little bit of a pop in the last couple of days and coming back into the mid 50,000s. I think price predictions in themselves aren't necessarily great pieces of information, but I do want to get your thoughts on price of Bitcoin in the future. Max Keiser was on the show back in 2013. Both of us were in my old broadcasting studio, which was my kitchen. I don't know if you remember Max from back then. He was screaming a lot, and I love Max. And he came to my Thanksgiving dinner, I think, in 2014, and he actually transacted a Bitcoin at the table with one of my trading buddies for $1,000. I'll have to figure out which year it was. And I remember thinking that was a very strange thing to happen. But, Max and I were talking about Bitcoin back in 2013 and talking about what would happen. And I saw a clip recently with Max where they were asking him price predictions 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. And he threw out some numbers, and I want to get your thoughts. And then he said something like, in 10 years, we won't even think about the price of Bitcoin in dollars because our whole paradigm will have shifted to where we don't even have that conversation. Whether the dollar's not relevant or even the price of Bitcoin isn't relevant because it'll be woven into just our lives. What are your thoughts as far as prices and then maybe even behavior changes?
So I think that Max is right on what he just said. And Max, so I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time with Max as well. But in what you just said, when I said we price Bitcoin and we don't care, prices go down in Bitcoin forever. So everything against Bitcoin will go down. Houses will go down, cars will go down, everything will go down forever. But we have this, because we measure the system by the system, we want to measure our Bitcoin in US dollars, or we want to measure our system, and it's kind of ludicrous when you think about it, because all of that system requires, so if you said today, and let's throw out a number, let's say the entire global wealth is, call it 500 trillion. 400 trillion, because if you had a debt unwind, or but the way people live today, so every experience is about 400 trillion globally. Divide that number by 21 million. That's what Bitcoin will be in time for today's living standard. But tomorrow, because we can guarantee there's going to be a ton more printing coming, tomorrow's world value may look, or in our world, it may feel like it's 500 trillion, but it's not really. It's just everything, all the costs have gone up because we printed a whole bunch of money.
Right.
So to get the same standard of living, you're chasing harder and harder and harder in a system that must keep that number go. So it's an irrelevant number, right? So whatever that number is, whether Bitcoin goes to 1 million, 10 million, 20 million,
I think you're lagging just a little bit here, Jeff, but I'm gonna wait for you to catch up. Jeff, I think your Zoom's just lagging a little bit, but I'm gonna just take over from what you were saying, and we're gonna try to reconnect here. I think based on what you're saying, as I'm doing the math in my head, you're saying that if you divide that 400 trillion by the 21 million Bitcoin, I guess you're looking at maybe a $20 million Bitcoin, although I'm going to have to triple check my math on that and make sure I'm not missing a zero. But as the system continues to do what it does, that value goes higher and higher and higher, and then it becomes almost pointless, because the whole point of Bitcoin is replacing the system and displacing the system. And so, it's strange to kind of measure a system from the inside, I think, is kind of the big realization that's going on here with the price of Bitcoin. And so, I guess it's the whole change of that paradigm shift. And if you think about the fact that if all prices are going down in the future, everything is going to be cheaper in Bitcoin standards, and you project that out for, say, 10 years, then you see everything becoming potentially free. And then that's against a society where everything's inflating and prices are constantly going up. And so those two things really do diverge at some point. And that makes it super interesting. And so I'm getting you back here. Hey, Jeff. I think I got you back here. I was just kind of extrapolating, what that meant if my math wasn't right, like a $20 million Bitcoin. But again, as you continue printing, it becomes pointless. And then you're talking about a currency that replaces the system that's based on dollars anyway. So it becomes kind of a moot point to think about the future price in dollars of Bitcoin. And can you hear me okay from this end? I think I'm.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's like what's Bitcoin worth in Venezuelan dollars?
Right.
And we're just not used to in the Western world our currencies failing at that rate. So we're not used to because we've never seen we in our lifetimes we haven't seen it. But if you were in Lebanon, or if you're in Venezuela, or if you're in Turkey, what's Bitcoin worth there, and you can see what happens a lot faster. That's going to happen everywhere.